Hello and welcome back to Words of Paradise. I'm your host, Leon Idle, and let's talk more about Disney Star Wars, everyone's favorite subject, the just abysmal slog that is everything from a galaxy far, far away coming from the House of Mouse. Maybe not everything. They've had some moderate successes here and there, but as a whole, it's a horrible product. Not only do a lot of us viewers think it's horrible, but so are some of the individuals working on the show. If we want to go ahead and take a look at this article from Comic Book Resources, Star Wars Skeleton Crew team reportedly unhappy with how they were treated. Well, this isn't the first time Disney's been known for horrendous working conditions. Did you guys know that mascots used to not be able, like mascots at the Disney parks, used to not be able to wear their own underwear? They had literally corporate Disney brand underwear that they had to share, and there was like outbreaks of, I think it was like scabies or crabs, or basically just gross stuff until they got sued for it. So yeah, bad management towards your lower level team members at Disney. Nothing new. Let's read through here. A report claims that the Skeleton Crew's production team was dissatisfied with their treatment, with some vowing not to work on a Star Wars project again. Well, let's see. The crew of the up-and-coming Star Wars show Skeleton Crew are unhappy with how they were treated during production, a new report claims. Making Star Wars cites simple, unnamed sources who allege the conditions behind the scenes on the hotly anticipated Disney Plus series. Is it though? Is it hotly anticipated? I won't lie, I forgot that this was even on the docket as part of the release schedule for a Star Wars project. I mean, interesting name, I guess, Skeleton Crew, but most people are so burned by Disney Star Wars that I don't see anyone talking about this. I don't see anyone talking about The Acolyte. I don't even see anyone talking about Andor, which is recently wrapped up and was actually apparently good from everything I've heard, even from the harshest of critics of Disney Star Wars. So, no, I would not call this hotly anticipated. These sources claim that several crew members quit Skeleton production during its production cycle and vowed never to work on Star Wars project in the future. Lucasfilm is said to have replaced departing crew members without addressing the supposedly grueling conditions that led to them to resign in the first place, leaving those who remain feeling underappreciated, disposable, and disrespected. Well, yeah. This isn't really a Lucasfilm problem. This is a Disney problem as a whole. Think about all the Marvel animators that basically just pump out assembly line green screen after assembly line green screen to meet deadlines like it's some sort of, Ford factory project in the 1960s or something. Disney has always had this problem. Epic Rap Battles of History even made a joke about it. They called it assembly line whimsy, which, that has been Disney for years. Anything post, I guess, the Meet the Robinsons era, if you remember that film. Not a lot of folks do. So, yeah, I don't want to just throw the shade at Lucasfilm when this has always been a Disney problem. One insider added that while Skeleton Crew's apparent back-of-house turmoil probably won't impact the show itself, it undoubtedly took its toll on the production staffs themselves. Again, I'm going to stop right here. It probably will impact the show itself. If you've got unhappy, dissatisfied workers trying to crank out a product, it's going to be a lackluster product. That's the case for any sort of business. Let's look at sales. If you're running a sales team and you're a bad leader and there's no morale, your team's just not going to make sales. You're not going to make commission. The company as a whole is not going to succeed. You can cross this over into other fields. Let's take a look at, in anything artistic. Let's say you're an Etsy artist or a, Fiverr artist or whatever. Someone commissions you. You're having a bad day. You're feeling underappreciated. Maybe your mom and, died. You got broke up with something. Your pet's sick. And yeah, you get this commission. Unless you know how to leave your emotions at the door, that's going to affect your product. Maybe your lines aren't as crisp when you're drawing a jawline. Maybe your color's a bit smudged. You've got other things on your mind. You're not putting your whole effort into it. So yeah, I can imagine this actually will affect the outcome of the work. Neither Lucasfilm nor Disney Plus have commented on the alleged poor treatment of the Skeleton Crew at this stage. Well, yeah, what a shock. Lucasfilm officially announced Skeleton Crew at Star Wars Celebration in May 2022. The studio also confirmed that Fantastic Beasts: The Secrets of Dumbledore star Jude Law would head up the Skeleton Crew's cast at this time. Skeleton Crew kicked off principal photography several months later in Manhattan Beach Studios in Manhattan Beach, California, with additional filming taking place in Culver City and California State University, Dominguez, California. Little is known about the Disney Plus series plot at present, although Lucasfilm describes it as a galactic version of classic Amblin coming-of-age adventure films of the 80s. So what you're saying is it's going to be like E.T., it's going to be like the Goonies. No, it's not. Because you can't recreate those nowadays. We saw them attempt to recreate the 80s with a remake of Ghostbusters, and we got Ghostbusters 2016. It failed. They kind of did it with the most recent Ghostbusters Afterlife, but that being said, those coming-of-age adventure stories, they're dead and gone. I remember when Spider-Man Homecoming was being touted as a John Hughes film, like The Breakfast Club for Spider-Man. It wasn't that. It clearly was trying to be that, but it was a pale imitation. It wasn't that. And I imagine this is going to be a pale imitation of, Goonies-style films as well. Star Wars Skeleton Crew debuts first footage. It's also been confirmed that Skeleton Crew will feature at least one scene involving a speeder bike. Ooh, well, remember the last scenes involving speeder bikes with Boba Fett. Those, hopefully they've upped their game a bit since then. An unofficial behind-the-scenes video from the show's California State University set surfaced online in September 2022 that revealed the iconic Star Wars vehicle's inclusion. In the footage, a stunt person is shown astride a speeder bike making a sharp turn, possibly to avoid hitting an obstacle in their path. Yeah, possibly to avoid, because we don't actually know, because it's going to be green screened in, because no one uses real practical fucking effects these days. God, I hate modern Hollywood. There is speculation that the stunt person is doubling for Ravi Cabo Conyers, who is rumored to play one of the child characters central to Skeleton Crew's story. The story was conceived by Skeleton Crew co-writers Jon Watts and Christopher Ford, and Watts first pitched it to Jon Favreau on the set of one of Marvel Studios' Spider-Man movies. Watts said that Favreau, who created The Mandalorian and The Book of Boba Fett, initially approached him about directing some episodes of an unnamed Star Wars production. Watts responded that he and Ford already had a fully formed idea for a project of their own, leading to Lucasfilm ultimately greenlighting Skeleton Crew. I mean, I do kind of like that, as opposed to what's been reported about Kathleen Kennedy, where it was her way or the highway. She would just bring the band hammer down on things she didn't like. I mean, how many directors did Solo go through? How many reshoots did Rogue One go through? Even though Rogue One did end up being relatively good. I'm glad that Jon Favreau is not the controlling, freak that Kathleen Kennedy seems to be. He heard these individuals, thought, they might have a good idea, and wants to roll with it. Now, is it actually a good idea? Who's to say? But I think that's at least a step in the right direction to give Disney Star Wars credit. I mean, from everything I've heard, Andor is completely different, so who's to say this can't be as well, and maybe for the better. I still don't know how I feel about the idea of it being Amblin-style films, but that remains to be seen. Skeleton Crew does not yet have a release date, however, it is expected to premiere on Disney Plus in 2023. So, I'm a little annoyed at this article. It doesn't actually go into the abuses and cruelty suffered by the studio. If I had to wager a guess, ridiculously long production hours, very little break time, very little sleep time, just monotonous, repetitive bogus, possibly having to go back and redo things over and over because Disney Star Wars is known for reshoots. Do I believe there's probably grueling conditions at Lucasfilm Disney? Yeah, I absolutely do. But without there being any sort of, at least in this article, information as to what those abuses were, it could just also be a bunch of whiny millennials who got work in Hollywood and thought they'd be, rich and famous millionaires, and now they're upset that they have to do real work. I mean, to my knowledge, Jon Favreau is not known for implementing grueling working conditions, but again, I could be wrong. And this isn't actually his project. It is the project of Christopher Ford and Jon Watts. I don't know anything about them, at least not by name. Jon Watts sounds familiar. I probably have some sort of knowledge on Jon Watts' film or TV or whatnot. But again, nothing sticks out as they've been called, awful things, been known to have these sort of conditions. So at this point, I think the story can go either way. I also think it's worth noting, it is a story by Comic Book Resources. They are known for some of the most abysmal trash takes in the industry. So rather than subscribing to them, why don't you go ahead and subscribe to me at Words of Paradise. Also, please like, comment, and follow me on Twitter at BoltTheWord. Let me know, are you excited to see Jude Law in the Skeleton Crew? Are you excited for more Disney Star Wars? I mean, I know I'm not, but I'm a Star Wars fan at the end of the day, so I'll give anything a try. And until then, this has been Words of Paradise.